Hello everyone. Welcome to those who haven't been here before, and welcome back to those who have watched before. Thanks for coming again. My name is Aaliyah Langley, and we are here to discuss the books I read in July 2024. I read three books in July, so not too many, and let's jump right in. I will give a fair warning, I guess. Two of the three books are not really happy, but they're still great books nonetheless. So let's really not waste time. So the first book I read in July 2024 is called Grief is for People by Sloane Crossley. Quick little synopsis on it. Grief is for People is a deeply moving and surprisingly suspenseful portrait of friendship and a book about loss packed with the verve for life. After the pain and confusion of losing her closest friend to suicide, Crossley looks for answers in friends, philosophy, and art, hoping for a framework more useful than the unavoidable stages of grief. This was a book that I had seen kind of like floating around. It came out sometime recently. I'm not sure. I should figure that out. This year, yeah. It came out in February of this year. And I'd seen it floating around, and I was like, oh, I was going to go to a talk at a local bookstore, near me, but I wasn't able to go. And I was like, it was on the back of my mind to read it. And I finally got to it in July. As you can see, I give it a 3.5 out of 5. Obviously, it's a heavy subject dealing with Crossley having a friend die from suicide, and it was kind of like trying to examine, what was trying just like doing the back work that you end up having to do when those kind of things happening and dealing with the grief. These are my thoughts on it. Grief is for People is a candid and wonderfully written memoir. I know it had to be difficult to write, and it was indeed difficult to read, especially for anyone who has dealt with anything like this. Grief is such a complex thing that we're still figuring out, and Crossley does excellent work of capturing it in such a beautiful and moving way. I would often read certain passages in this book repeatedly, just gripped and moved by her words. I'm trying to think back to how I was reading. I think I actually finished this book. I was on a plane, and I remember like going through the last few pages. I had the last few pages I was reading on my phone at that point, and I was just like combing over, especially the last kind of chapter-ish of it. And as I said in my little review there, just a very short thing, grief is something that's so complex, and it's something that I feel like even when you've been through it, or if you've gone through it, it's something you don't even really fully know, or you don't even fully realize, and it's something that can just be so all-encompassing and so hard to navigate through. But I really do feel like Crossley did such a good job of trying to like identify it and trying to like talk through it. And obviously it's gonna be different for every person, and it'll be different some days or not. But it was quite the book to kind of go back from her and kind of have her kind of examine this, talk about her friend, and kind of just get through in the way you know how. For a lot of people, writing is a way that they can get through. So definitely a good book. I would recommend it. Like I said, it's not a necessarily easy read, but if you have dealt with something like this, or you just have dealt with grief, which we all have, or if you haven't yet, you will at some point. It's one of those books that I'd recommend to people. All right, so next up, kind of on the same edges of grief in some level, is a book called A Man Called Ove. It's this Swedish book that was published back in 2012. Some of you might remember a name like this, because last year there was a movie out called A Man Called Ove that starred Tom Hanks, and that's how I first came to the work. I saw this movie in January 2023, and I found out it was a Swedish book, and I was like, I want to read the book, because the film connected with me so much. Let me read a quick little synopsis on Ove, A Man Called Ove. At first sight, Ove is almost certainly the grumpiest man you'll ever meet. A curmudgeon with staunch principles, strict routines, and a short fuse. People think him better, and he thinks himself surrounded by idiots. Ove's well-ordered, solitary world gets a shake-up one November morning with the appearance of new neighbors, a chatty young couple and their two boisterous daughters, who announce their arrival by accidentally flattening Ove's mailbox with their U-Haul. What follows is a heartwarming tale of unkept cats, unlikely friendships, and the community's unexpected reassessment of one person they thought they had all figured out. A word-of-mouth bestseller that has caused a sensation across Europe, Backman's irresistible novel about the angry old man next door is an uplifting exploration of the unreliability of first impressions and a gentle reminder that life is sweeter when it is shared with other people. This is such a beautiful book. I have it here, actually. I got it from my library, and I think I'm probably going to order a copy for myself. Like I said, when I first saw this movie in January 2023, it came at a time of life in particular where it connected to me more than it probably would have at any point. But really, kind of like I said at the last bit there, a reminder about how sweet life can be when you share it with others, when you find things to like live for, when you can have something to like, give you hope to keep going through, even through the tough times. I'll just, before I say too much more, I'll just say kind of what I wrote about it. And Man Called Ove is an incredible book. I first came to his work by seeing the American film adaptation of Man Called Ove last year. I immediately wanted to read this book, and I'm happy I finally did. Ove is not a likable character, at least at the start. He is reserved, strict, routine, uncooperative, grumpy man, but you grow to love him over these pages and sympathize with what he's going through and how he's feeling. He's completely wrapped in grief, and at his end, until a boisterous couple with two young kids becomes his neighbors, and not without a fight. His life takes an almost complete turn, and he finds a reason to keep going. I don't want to spoil the book. I might do a little bit here, but I don't really want to in this review. So I will not go into details too much further. But this book builds slowly, and as the book is building, and as we're going to love Ove, he grows to fall in love with parts of his life again and see the light again. There's hardship, humanity, connection, hope thread throughout this novel, making it one of my favorite reads of 2024. And this is a book I recommend to any and everyone. So as you can see from my review and also from the synopsis here, Ove is this man. It's kind of like it's almost like he's so unlikable. It's kind of funny. Like he's this guy. We're seeing him just like completely just like not wanting to deal with anybody. Just like him trying to do his own thing, and he's like I said, he's at his wit's end with everything. And I guess this is a spoiler here. He has lost his wife at this point, and he's really just like doesn't have anything kind of going on, and we kind of backtrack a bit through his life and kind of see like the places that kind of got him to this point, and like how he's had hardships throughout his life and things that have just kind of kept him down, and then he meets his lovely wife, and that's good, but it's also like he's still very much like a very the grumpy, routine, strict man that we first met him as. But over time we begin to love him, and this couple that moves across the street, they start to pull him out. Like it's really like one of those things where you're like dragging someone, like he's very resistant to it, but eventually he loosens up, and eventually he comes to create almost like a little family with them in some capacity, and just like, again, kind of shows you the benefits of what it's like to complete your life with people, and also it shows you how easy it is to become completely imprisoned by something like grief, and how easy it is just to succumb to that. And it's people like these neighbors who moved into the neighborhood, they're able to slowly, not without a fight, pull him out of that and let him find a reason to kind of press forward, really. It's such a beautiful book. It's like I said, I need to buy a copy for myself, because it's one of those that I want to have on my book shelf. It's one of those that I want to be able to easily lend out to people, especially people who maybe are going through hard times, or just feeling kind of like either going through grief or just feeling down, or periods of, this is one of those books that kind of helps you, I don't know, feel a way to like pull out of it a little bit. I think about this book, one of my favorite films of all time is a film called Ikiru, which is a 1952 Japanese film, which is about a man who gets diagnosed with cancer, and Ikiru means to live in Japanese. And after he gets diagnosed with cancer, he kind of starts thinking about like, I need to start living my life. I need to live. Like I don't have very, very long. And this book was something that kind of reminded me of that film a lot, of kind of like having that in different ways, obviously, because in Ikiru he's being hit with a death sentence and wants to live, and in this book he doesn't want to live, and is trying to maybe avoid reasons to live by being with this family. But I was kind of seeing the parallels in terms of like living and like wanting to go for something, and wanting to kind of have a feeling of purpose and a feeling of I want to do this, especially towards the end when Ove starts to kind of like let the light in a little bit. It's just I really can't say more about this book. It's so brilliant. I actually think I might read it again before I get back to the library potentially, because it's just I didn't even go through all of it, but if you want to look at my Goodreads, there's a lot of good quotes in this book about grief, but also other good quotes just about like life and about kind of summarizing Ove a little bit. Go check that out on my Goodreads. It's linked below. But yeah, excellent book. I recommend it to everybody. Man Called Ove. And to wrap it up, the final book I read in 2024, July, is Say More, Lessons from Work, the White House, and the World by Jen Psaki. This book, Jen Psaki is someone who, if you don't know her, she has a very long career in politics. She's been a communications director. She's been a press secretary for the White House. She's been a State Department spokesperson, all these things. Before I even get too much into it, let me read the synopsis on her. Former White House press secretary and current MSNBC host Jen Psaki shares the surprising lessons she's learned on her path to success and offers unique yet universal advice about how to be a more effective communicator in any situation. Not many White House press secretaries capture the nation's interest the way Jen Psaki did. Professionally candid and clear, Psaki quickly became known for her ability to break through the noise and successfully deliver her message. In her highly anticipated book, Psaki shares her journey to the briefing room and beyond, taking readers along the campaign trail to the State Department and inside the White House under 2 presidents. With her signature wit, Psaki writes about reporting to bosses from the hot-tempered Rahm Emanuel to the coolly intellectual Barack Obama to the surprisingly tender-hearted John Kerry. She also talks about her time working closely with President Joe Biden from the start of his administration to set a new tone for the country, restoring the sense of calm and respect for the role of the media in our democracy. Since leaving the White House, Psaki's star has continued to rise. She launched a highly rated show on MSNBC that was so successful that in just 6 months she was given an additional primetime Monday slot ahead of Rachel Maddow. And Psaki's work doesn't end at the office. She is a mother of 2 young children and shares her stories about the journey of communicating as a parent. Did one bedtime briefing, her younger daughter asked the question, "Why do wars start?" Which Jen carefully explained and then got to follow up, "Have you ever seen a unicorn?" In Say More, Psaki explains her straightforward approach to communication, walking readers through difficult conversations as well as moments where humor saves the day. Whether it is with preschoolers, partners, or presidents, she addresses the best ways to give and receive feedback, how to connect with your audience, how to listen actively, and much more. Say More is the book Psaki wishes she had when she started her career and is a trove of entertaining, essential lessons from one of the most prominent voices in American politics today. So it's a mouthful there, but honestly, it really is. I was picking up this book. I don't really watch Jen's show on MSNBC. I click into it now and then, but Jen Psaki is someone who I think I had heard of potentially kind of, but I really didn't really know her. I wasn't really much into knowing people on the staff that much until the past couple years. But when she started as press secretary for Biden, right when he became president in 2021, I was there from the very first day watching the press briefings. I didn't miss a press briefing of hers in her little over 18-month, I believe it was, tenure. And I don't know. I wanted to read this book. I was like, let me kind of hear what she has to offer, what she has to say. She's someone who has such a vast resume that it'd be interesting to kind of get advice from her. Kind of what I said about it is, in Say More, Jen Psaki offers the book filled with the lessons she's learned from her decades of working in communications. As a former White House press secretary, which I'm proud to say I never missed a briefing, she has quite the experience to offer advice on different communication methods. We walk through her times working for presidents, secretaries of state, and other Democratic officials, and we see how she learned various skills from all of these jobs that she offers to us, all while balancing this hectic life as a mother of 2. We go through the highs and lows of her career. I recommend this book to anyone who wants to learn more about working communications. You'd be hard-pressed to find a better person to get advice from than Psaki. Yeah, it really was just a book the book was kind of organized in a way of like different angles, kind of showing you like how to communicate a message if you're doing it for this audience or if you're trying to do it in this way. And it kind of was broken down, and she was weaving it through like different departments. She's working on different White Houses, different people, kind of like splashing in little bits about when she started having kids and how it was like trying to manage her family. And like you see in the thing there when her daughter asked her like, how do wars start? Like a 6-year-old asking you that, like, what are you supposed to say? And kind of just like the little things that were got her so successful in her career, and how she would research and how she's so meticulous. And from what I always observed from watching her every day doing press briefings, which she did a press briefing every single day. There's minus a couple if there was a trip or something like that. They were doing it every day, 5 days a week. I would see how prepared she was and how just like on point she was, and to be able to like, that's a job that's so crazy. Like watching those briefings, people just hitting you with questions, and you have to be prepared on all different levels. And she had this big binder coming out, and that was just me seeing her in that environment. But I also know like she had a lot of other things she was doing before then as well that just got her even to that role. Just very fascinating, and a good book, like I said, for people who want to work in communications, either in political realms or even others. I would probably say this is a good book to kind of get good tips of from a kind of a master at the craft here. Like I said, you'd be hard pressed to find a better person to seek advice from. So it was kind of in that, but also kind of like little bits of memoir, kind of talking about a typical political DC type book. But I enjoyed it nonetheless. So those are my 3 books for July 2024. a short and kind of quick one here. We'll be back soon for my picks in August. I've already read, I think, 3 or 4 books at the time I'm filming this, which is August 20th. And I should be finishing at least 1 or 2 more before we get back on then. So I look forward to kind of popping back in when we go over the August books. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching. As I mentioned in the video, my Goodreads and stuff is linked below if you want to see my reviews, or if you want to see the things I highlighted in each of the books. One thing I like having the physical books, but I also like having it on Kindle. I usually get most of my books from Libby or my library unless I own them. But with Goodreads, I can highlight, and then also it connects, so you can see all my Kindle notes, or if I have highlights in there, which is all nice. So if you want to go check those out, do that. If you have any recommendations for me, I'm always looking for recommendations, so please pop those below, and I will see you guys in my next video. Thank you so much. Bye.